What's going on, people, and welcome back to Fantasy Premier League Game Week 13 coming up Saturday. I'm going to go over my Game Week 12 and how I got on, because I realised I didn't do that in the first video that I released. This is obviously only my second FPL video of FPL content that I've released, so be patient with me, guys. I will in the future look to improve the quality, camera, lightings, microphones, all that stuff. That will come in the future, so I just hope you enjoy the content regardless, because I enjoy making it. It's only my second time. Looking back on last week, Game Week 12, in goal I went with Flecken. He got me 3 points. Not too bad. You're not always sure if he's going to play because he's been in and out a bit. But I think when he's fit, he's going to start more often than not ahead of Strakosha. Obviously, against Liverpool, it was always going to be difficult. And even though they lost the game, he got me a few points. I could have done with maybe 5 or 6, but yeah, it's not horrendous. Going into defence, Trippier was away at Bournemouth, and obviously they lost. Bournemouth really deserved to win that and get the 3 points, and they did. They're obviously struggling with injuries at the moment, Newcastle, and I think until then their defence is back, like the likes of Bottom and Burn, they're not going to be at full strength. Obviously, they've even got injuries up top as well. But Bournemouth definitely were all over him in that game, and they did deserve to win. So unfortunately, didn't get a lot for Trippier. Only got me 1. Similar with Aguerd. West Ham obviously got the 3 points, but because they conceded 2, and Forest did trouble him, I was kind of at the end of it thinking, how did Forest not get at least a point from the game? Because they definitely looked threatening, and I was surprised that West Ham won it in the end. But because of that, I only managed to get me 1. I'll speak a bit more about what I'm going to do in terms of transfers and that in a bit, but Aguerd is one of the ones I'm looking to get rid of. He's the only, I've got 2 in my whole squad that haven't got me any bonus points, and he is one of them, so I am looking to get him out. And then the last defender for Game Week 12 I had was Joachim Andersen. Obviously they lost at home to Everton 3-2. Big result for Everton. I like Andersen. I also like Gueye a lot. Gueye is a good option for you if you haven't got the budget there. He is a good option for a slightly cheaper version for a Palace defender. And obviously they lost out to Everton via 1 goal. But usually most weeks you're going to get probably a little bit more in terms of return for Palace defenders, because they are one of the better defences in the league at the moment. 4 in midfield, again, Saka was my best, obviously, with 5. He beaten Burnley, I think most people would expect them to, but I feel like Saka's not been at it in the last few months compared to especially last season, and probably earlier on in the season. I think he has slowed down a bit, but he does play a ton of games. There's always that thing in my mind with him, like he's had a few knocks recently, and I'm surprised he doesn't have more, because the accumulation of minutes and the amount of football he plays, and he always plays for England, so I'm not hugely surprised by it. And I know he's a frustrating one, whether to keep him or not, because he's not probably living up to what he has done, but I think you're not going to find too many better options than him on a consistency level, even though he's not performing up to what he's shown. Because I think if you get rid of him within a few game weeks again, he's going to get a haul or get a considerable more amount of points than he has done. So I personally feel like he's one that if you're thinking about selling, just be 100% sure before you do it, because I feel like he is a pretty good option to hold long term. 2 Brentford midfielders I had in then, Jensen and Buemo. They lost out to Liverpool. I kind of felt like they possibly could get something against Liverpool, because I do think Brentford are a decent side, but didn't really turn up for the game. Quality team in Liverpool. So they only got me 2 points each, and look, it could have been 0, but in Buemo most weeks is going to get more than that. Jensen has been a bit disappointing for me since I brought him in. He's another one I'm considering getting rid of in the next few game weeks. I'm going to keep him Buemo though, because obviously he's on penalties. He's their main threat. His attacking output is very good usually. He has struggled a little bit so far in the last few weeks, but I think he will come good again, so I'd keep him in. And then lastly, Foden got me 2 as well. That crazy 4-4 against Chelsea. I don't think many people would have predicted that amount of goals in that game. And obviously got another massive game at home to Liverpool on Saturday with the early kickoff at 12:30. Foden's been good for me though in recent weeks, apart from Game Week 12. He has got me more points than I was hoping he would get me when I got him in, but he's kind of, I feel like, give me more on top of what I was expecting. So I'm going to stick with him for now. Just wasn't a great week for him last week with all them goals, but I think he'll come good again. And then the 3 up front, I went with Haaland, Watkins and Darwin Núñez. Nunes obviously getting me an assist, but he did miss a few good opportunities to get a goal himself as well. And he's one of them players that if you're going to have him in your team, you've got to be aware of that. I was aware of it before I got him in. I'm going to stick with it for now, but I could see maybe a few game weeks down the line that possibly I may get rid of him, considering how he's playing in his form, because he could go on a haul, but then I feel like he'll have 2 or 3 game weeks where he won't get nothing really. But 5, I'm not mad at it. It's a little bit more than I was expecting. He got me an assist, and he probably should have had a couple of goals. But 5, I'm not mad at it. I captained Watkins, went with a bit of a differential. A goal, probably should have had a couple more, could have had a hat-trick. 3-1 winners against Fulham. As I said, he scored a goal. I risked it with him for captaincy. Bit of a differential, and it paid off in a sense. So I got 12, not mad at it at all. There's another one going forward, though, in the coming weeks that I may look to think about what I'm going to do with him, because their Villa's fixtures start to get a lot tougher. And then obviously Haaland got an assist and 2 goals against Chelsea. Thought about getting rid of him just because I kind of want to fit Salah into the team as well, unless I play around my team a lot to get Salah in and keep Haaland. But I'm not going to get rid of Haaland. I know he's flagged at the moment for because he picks up a knock in the international break, but he was rested for the second game. I expect him to play against Liverpool. If not 90 minutes, I think he'll play at least 75. So I'm keeping him in. It's a massive game against Liverpool, and I can't see him not playing. So I'm going to keep him in, even though he's flagged. I think he'll be fine. Subs then, as you can see, Neto. Unfortunately, I went with the wrong keeper. They got the big result against Newcastle. He got 9. Unfortunately, I had him on the bench. But you can't always get it right. In hindsight, it looks obvious, but it never is. Ben White I had as my vice, but obviously didn't feature and didn't play. I got 0 for him. Ward-Prowse got 2 assists, played 90 minutes. I messed up on the Ward-Prowse one against Forest. I didn't play him because Forest, I think, can be tricky, and I wanted to have my midfield that I went with. Unfortunately, it didn't all work out how I'd like. I would obviously like to have Neto and Ward-Prowse in my starting 11 for that 9 and 11 points, but you can't always get it right, and unfortunately I didn't. And Matty Cash got 2 playing against Fulham. I'm not mad. I know my defence all got 1, and he would have got me an extra 1 if I'd have started him, but I don't think he's been in great form since I've brought him in. I wasn't certain on if he was going to play either, so I'm not mad at that. Obviously, Neto and Ward-Prowse is a little bit aggravating, but yeah, it happens. So now I just want to talk about some differentials for game week 13 coming up for within a budget. I've gone with less obvious players than a couple in there that you might think are obvious, but they're not necessarily on a high-end scale of the price. So this is more budget differentials. If you want to bring in someone a bit cheaper that I think are worth looking at. Eze, he's not the cheapest, but I feel like he's good value compared to some other midfielders that you could have in the team. The next 3 games, they've got Luton away, West Ham away, and Bournemouth at home. I think against Luton, they'll get a result. West Ham, I think, is tricky, and Bournemouth, they could get a result. So I think he's worth it in the short term over those 3 games. But then after that, in game week 16, they've got Liverpool. And then in 17, they've got Man City. And they've got Brighton, Chelsea and Brentford. So I think it does get tougher after the initial 3. For the price, he's at 6.1. He's been great since he come back from injury. And I definitely think he'll get a result against Luton and be involved heavily. And I think potentially against Bournemouth. But that one in the middle with West Ham could be tricky. So I think he's a good option to have there if you're looking to bring someone in and you haven't got a ton of money. 6.1, I think he's worth a shot. Another Palace player as well is Michael Olise. Just come back from injury himself. Big fan of him ever since he was at Reading. I've watched him, very impressed by him, his mentality. Just a quality player for his age. 5.8, even cheaper than Eze. Yes, he's not going to be probably involved as much and minutes and stuff at the moment because he's just coming back. Eze's got a few weeks on him in terms of fitness and stuff, but on that wing, he's very tricky. He can take set pieces, he can take corners if you need him to, and he's just a tricky customer. 5.8, I think, is tremendous value for his ability, and I think he will go up in the coming months and next season if he stays. I think I could see him being 6.5 to 7 next season, so I think he's great value for money if he can stay fit now. Luton, West Ham and Bournemouth, I think he's worth a punt. 5.8, I don't think you can go very wrong with him. The only thing I would consider with him, obviously, is you've got to be careful because you're not sure how many minutes he's going to play because he's just coming back from injury. But especially after that Luton game. If he plays enough minutes, I think he'll play even more against West Ham and then potentially Bournemouth. So Elise 5.8, I think he's worth a punt. Another one in the midfield that I've been very impressed with because he's kind of switched his position to a more advanced one and they're benefiting from it. And they're going to need to benefit from him and for him to keep doing it because of the points deduction they recently received. And that is Everton's Abdoulaye Doucouré. I've been very impressed with him, as I said, since he's been put forward in that more advanced position. He's getting goals. Yes, some of it's from kind of knockdowns from set pieces, but you still have to be there to do it. 5.5, I think, is good value for money with Everton. I think people are going to be put off because of the points deduction, but I think that it's going to light a fire under that squad to get them points back and go on and do even better. For his price, I think he's one of Everton's main threats, and I think he is their kind of focal point, even though it should probably be Calvert-Lewin. I think Doucouré is very underrated, and 5.5 I think is good value for what he offers. Obviously, at home to Manchester United on Saturday, I'm quite nervous about the game. I think he will cause problems. He is someone that I'm considering bringing him in at some point in the next few weeks, potentially, because of his price, and I don't think he's going to get selected a ton. Someone that I'm looking at, Forest away after United in game week 14. Could be tricky, but also they could get a result. And then they're at home to Newcastle, who have got their own injury issues, so you never know. Chelsea after that. Then Burnley. Then they've got Spurs, City and Wolves. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of difficulty for fixtures. But I think in the next three, Manchester United at home, Forest away, and Newcastle at home, again, I think it's worth a punt. Yes, it could go wrong, but it could go right too. Doucouré, 5.5. And then last for the differentials on a budget this week, Dominic Solanke. Obviously, 2 goals against Newcastle. On his day, he's very threatening. Bournemouth, I know they're a bit inconsistent, but the next 3, they got Sheffield United away, which I believe they will win. So I think he's worth a punt for that alone. Aston Villa at home after that. It could be tricky against Villa, but at home, Bournemouth getting a decent result in their last home game against Newcastle. They'll fancy it. And then Palace away, could go either way. And then even after that, from game week 16 to game week 20, when they come up against Tottenham, they've got a decent run of fixtures there that I think he's worth having in the team. He's not the cheapest, but he's still not... You're not going to pay for what you're paying for like an Alvarez or someone. He's 6.4. Bournemouth are inconsistent, but on his day, he's their main goal scorer, and he can be very threatening. And he's in good form at the moment. So for a cheaper budget option for a differential, I think he's worth a punt. 6.4. Next 3, Sheffield, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace. I think he's definitely worth a shout. And he's someone that I've had in my team this year already, and I'm probably going to get him back in at some point. So Dominic Solanke, 6.4. Maybe have a look at him. Going into the injuries then, a few players coming back from internationals with injuries. Matoma, it's looking like he could be out for a couple of weeks at least. Definitely 1 week, so I don't think he's going to feature this game week 13. So I'd be benching him if you've got him, or doing a last minute transfer. Depends on what you want to do. If you want to hold him for the longer term, just bench him. But it looks like he's definitely going to be out for a bit. Bowen, he's got fluid on the knee apparently. There's not been a ton said about him in terms of giving away of whether he's going to play or not. So it's a tricky one with Bowen, whether to know to bench him, keep him or get rid of him. I personally would hold on to him and bench him because I think he's only had 1 major injury issue so far. I don't think I'd be looking to get rid of him if I had him. I don't have him currently, but he's someone I would consider in the future. If you've got him already, unless there's someone you really want to get in for him that's going to be as good as him, I don't think there's a ton of options that will be a consistent performer for points week in, week out than Bowen. If I had him, I'd look to bench him for now. Antonio as well, another West Ham player. Picked up some sort of knock or injury for Jamaica. Not quite sure what he did, but he's another one that's not an absolute certain to be involved. So if you do have him, again, just err on precaution whether to start him or not. Son obviously went down with an injury for South Korea. Not a great deal been said on him either. Personally feel like he'll play. Haaland, I think, will be fine. Obviously, he's got a knock, but he did have a break in that second game for the internationals. So he's had extra time to get ready for this Liverpool fixture. I think he'll play and probably play the 90 minutes against Liverpool. Kudos, another one that's picked up something for Ghana. I'm not quite sure what he's done there, but it's a shame if he is going to be out because he's starting to hit form for West Ham, especially with Bowen and Antonio might be out. If Kudos is out as well, if you've got any of them free, it's going to affect West Ham's chances of getting a result. I've only got Aguerd and Ward-Prowse. I don't have any of the 3 that are listed for injuries. Still could affect the whole team overall. I think Bowen out of them 3 is the most likely to play, but we'll have to wait and see. We don't know for sure. So this is how my team looks for game week 13 then, guys. I'm going with Neto in goal. He's away to Sheffield. Obviously, I missed out with him on the bench last week. Got 9 points. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm putting him on as my starter this week. Flecken's obviously got Arsenal. They are at home, but I think it's a little bit less risky to play Neto. I think he's got more of a chance to haul points against Sheffield United than Flecken against Arsenal. So Neto is in the sticks. I've stuck with Joachim Andersen. They're away to Luton, but I feel like they will get a result there. So Joachim Andersen. Trippier at home to Chelsea. They have got injury issues, Newcastle, so they're coming off that Bournemouth defeat. Confidence might be a bit lower. But obviously, Trippier's another one to mention that I just remembered on the injury side because he returned from internationals early for family matters. So I personally think he'll play. They've got too many issues in the defence already for him not to play if he hasn't picked up a knock and it's more family reasons. I think he will play, hence why I've got him in the team against a decent Chelsea side. They're going to need all the best players they have at their disposal. Trippier's a vital player. I would stick with him and risk playing him. Trippier. And then Aguerd, obviously, as I said, he's one that I'm looking to get rid of. But for this game week against Burnley away, I fancy him. Even though he hasn't got me any bonuses yet, I fancy West Ham to either get a clean sheet, despite attacking positions and midfielders and stuff further up in the team that could miss out. Defensively, they seem pretty solid. And against Burnley, I fancy them to at least get the 3 points, if not a clean sheet as well on top of it. So he is going into my final position at the defence. Sticking with 4 in midfield. I'm sticking with Foden at home to Liverpool, hoping that he can get me more than 2. It's a difficult fixture. I wouldn't be mad if he doesn't get me a ton. But City being a home team, I fancy them more than Liverpool. Mbuemo at home to Arsenal. He's on penalties, obviously. And I feel like Brentford, I think, might go with the upset and beat Arsenal. So I've stuck with him. Saka, obviously he's on penalties for Arsenal. He's not been great recently, but you know what? Brentford, it could go either way. So I've got both of them in to cover bases for penalties either way. Ward-Prowse will take free kicks and the corners. I think he's worth having in against Burnley. Just for the free kicks and corners, he could easily get you an assist and a goal. Hopefully he does. I've viced him as well. So looking against Burnley, I fancy West Ham. So hopefully he can get me rack me up some points. And then the front 3, I've gone with Darwin, Núñez, Watkins and Haaland. Darwin, you're never sure what you're going to get, but he seems to be up for the big game, so hopefully he can get me something. Watkins away to Tottenham. Actually gone with Villa to get the upset against Tottenham because of Tottenham's defensive issues with the injuries and bans. I think Watkins could at least get a goal, if not more. So I'd stick with Watkins. And then Haaland, I've captained. I think he will play the majority of the game. And they're the home team, but there is a lot of goals in this game in the history, Liverpool and Man City. So it's at City's ground. I think Haaland will be way up for it. And yeah, I see him getting at least 1 goal. So I'm going to go with captain in Haaland. And then on the bench, as you can see, I've gone with Flecken. And then in my 1 position, I've gone with Matty Cash because away to Tottenham. He's not been great recently on a personal level in terms of attacking returns for a defender. I could see him getting something against Tottenham. If any of my players don't play, hopefully he can get put in. Jensen, second spot. I was considering playing him because I do think they will upset Arsenal. But I couldn't really leave any of the others out considering the fixtures they had. And then White, I've gone with the last position because he's still flagged. Both Cashin and White are flagged with 75% chance of playing. And I just don't feel like White will be involved again. He didn't play last time, so yeah, I don't feel like they're going to just throw him in straight away against a team like Brentford. I think it's just going to be too much. So that is my bench. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Obviously, it's only my 2nd time into the Fantasy Premier League content creation world, but I am enjoying it. And as I said, going forward, within time, I will get better equipment. Hopefully the graphics and everything will get better, the lighting, etc. But it's all about the content right now in terms of the information I'm giving you. Hopefully I can help you guys out if you're new to doing it as well. And hopefully I can give you little tips and tricks here and there that will help you guys. And hopefully I'll be back next week with a recap of how I did for game week 13. Got 50 for game week 12. So hopefully I can at least match that, if not go further in this game week coming up. Good luck with your game week, guys, and I'll be back soon.